Howie Long is an NFL Hall of Famer and Emmy Award-winning analyst on the Fox NFL Sunday pregame show. He earned 8 Pro Bowl berths in his 13 career with the Raiders. He's also doing a great job for General Motors now in those ads. Howie, thank you so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Senator. How are you?
I'm doing great. I met you
Good to talk with you again.
Well, me too, and you're one of my heroes. And we met on an airplane several years ago, and just briefly. And I followed your career. I love to see a guy do so well in a second career, since I've had about 14 careers. And it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Tell me, do they actually pay you guys for having so much fun?
Oh, it ought to be illegal, to tell you the truth. I always tell people, I live back in Virginia, and I have to fly to L.A. every week, and I've been doing that for 16 years. As a matter of fact, that's where you and I ran into one another on that United flight going west or east. I'm not sure which direction it was, but they pay me to fly. The rest of it is just a lot of fun. We've got a great group, and Terry and I have been together now 16 years.
You kick off the day for so many of us in America. We know we're gonna be able to sit back and relax and enjoy, put everything else aside for a little while. Just a little bit on the game here. I'm a big fan. One of the things that seems to me like is when I was coming up, we had the dynasties and so forth, and then we had parity, where it looked like because of the way the money was divided and so forth, that everybody was kind of on an equal playing field. Looks like we're kind of going back to the era when you're going to have some teams that are going to dominate year after year. Is that the way it is?
Well, it appears, and I think the teams that have dominated, with the exception of the transition they've had in Indianapolis from Tony Dungy to Jim Caldwell, and the remarkable job he's done. Indianapolis has jumped out again to 8-0, and they're on a roll, and Peyton Manning is doing what Peyton Manning does. But it seems like you're either real good or you're real bad, and the teams that are generally real good have a lot of continuity. I think we have a tendency to be somewhat of an attention deficit society where we need to win now, we need to do it, we can't build for the long haul, and there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of pressure to get people in those luxury boxes. So people are turning it over, and Atlanta is probably the only team that's really been able to turn it around pretty quickly recently. Yeah.
Speaking of the Colts, the big game this week, I guess, are the Pats and the Colts. What does that look like to you?
Well, like I said, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, they kind of define the position, and I think those two organizations have kind of defined the last 10 years, and the job that Bill Belichick does up in New England with what it seems like they're turning players over every year, and the trade of Richard Seymour to Oakland is a great example of that. Revamped defense up there, but the one constant is Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, and the rest of it, let's fill the pieces in around him. And in Indianapolis, the job that Peyton's doing with a lot of young receivers, revamped offensive line, and new defensive scheme and defensive coordinator is pretty remarkable. And I'd say you have to probably give Indy the edge at home.
You mentioned the receivers. That's the thing. Drafting receivers must be the biggest crapshoot in the world. The Redskins drafted 3 a couple of years ago. You know the end of that. You know the end of that story. Let me ask you this: you have a son now playing for the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, he's playing with the Rams.
I've seen the build on that guy. Do you call him Mr. Long? Yeah.
Yeah, he's these kids today are so much. It's a year-round job. Weightlifting wasn't a big part of pro football when I was playing, and got in shape just playing basketball and going to the gym and doing whatever. And nowadays, these kids are eating better, they're training better. It's year-round. Their body fat is 278 and 4% body fat, and they run like deer. So.
It's amazing. Well, from what I've seen, he's having a good year, and he's been starting, and so he's going to have a great career. just like his dad did. I want to ask you before you leave what your take was from Afghanistan, Howie. You and the Fox group went over there and spent some time with our troops.
Well, Terry and I have been to a number of bases here in our country and overseas, and that was an extraordinary experience. And we did the Super Bowl after 9/11 down in New Orleans, and that was very emotional. And we did a show from the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier out in the Mediterranean. All of those experiences were unique and very emotional, but I'd have to say this trip to Afghanistan was inspiring, to say the least, and sobering at the same time. What we ask of our all-volunteer force, and people don't realize this, you're talking about 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're asked over and over again through multiple tours of duty to sacrifice both them and their families. And I said this at the end of our show, and in talking with our troops over there, you can make the case that this generation is every bit as good as any of our previous great generations that have served our country.
Well, Howie, thank you for doing that. Thank you for what you're doing in that regard, and keep up the good work. Thank you for coming on with us today.
Hey, good talking with you. I look forward to seeing you down the road.
Okay, buddy.